Welcome, Bulldog fans. It's a Thursday afternoon start. Well, but Steve, tomorrow, Friday, as this airs, you and I are going to be on our way to Fayetteville, because the weather forecast is much better than it was 2 years ago. How could it not be much better than 2 years ago, where it was a subarctic conditions in Fayetteville, and the Bulldogs won a thriller. Nicholas Brown blocks a field goal on just about the last play of the game. Bulldogs walk out of Fayetteville with a victory. Arkansas ended a 4-year losing streak for the Bulldogs last year. This year, Steve, State's going to be a heavy favorite going into this matchup with the Razorbacks.
Yeah, David, and I think the season kind of bears that out, and rightfully so. I mean, Mississippi State's been able to run the football, and football's about matchups. And Arkansas offensively has really struggled this year. They had some injuries, of course, to Austin Allen, but they had some injuries to their bell cow running back. Rollie Williams was lost in the spring and ended up having to retire from football. And so as a result, Arkansas has really struggled to be Arkansas. And then you've had injuries on the offensive line. On the flip side of things, State has found some currency with the offensive line that Arkansas defense has been very susceptible to the run. So it appears that State should be the better of it on both sides of the football.
Of course, Mississippi State has had its own injury issues at the wide receiver positions. That showed up some this past weekend when Donald Gray was not able to play. He's questionable again for this week, but Coach Dan Mullen was hopeful that his senior receiver can be back in the game, certainly before his senior season ends. But State was able to find some guys in Reggie Todd, Jamal Couch, Cyrus Mitchell, and others who made some plays in that game. But this is a game where State wants to line up and kind of establish control and mix in passes as necessary. They really want to keep a controlled attack to this offense this week.
I think so, David. Not to mention the weather conditions, especially with supposed to be gusts as high as 30 miles an hour, could impact down the field passing. And so the team that can come out and establish the running game and probably do some short swing passes to keep those linebackers honest will likely have the advantage early on. That's really what Mississippi State wants to do, is put pressure on the linebackers to be able to run the football. Barring some mistakes from the Mississippi State offense, this should be a team that State should be able to get some distance from early and perhaps rest some guys in the second half, hopefully in anticipation of a short week against Ole Miss.
Of course, under Brett Bielema, it's been a four-base defense up there for years, but they switched up some this year, gone more to an odd front. Maybe the record doesn't bear it out, but it makes them a more interesting matchup because you have to change some of the ideas. But Dan Mullen, when we asked about this, said Arkansas is still going to do what Arkansas does.
It's true, David, and State has seen some 3-4 alignments this year as well, so it's not like it's a new undertaking. But Paul Rhodes, a guy that's had a great career as a defensive coach, has gone in there. I don't know if they really have the personnel to run the scheme the way that he wants to. You don't really have that true Viper position. You've got some guys that were recruited to play a 4-3. They do run some five-man fronts at times to try to, force you to kind of account for those guys on the edges. And, with State running so much as on read, that could be something that we watch. But if State can find a way to get the tight ends involved, much like we saw last week, swing some passes out in the flats and really kind of stress those linebackers and put them in a situation where they have to defend both the run and the pass, it should be big for Mississippi State.
Of course, not an injury situation, but a lot of Bulldogs fans were concerned when quarterback Nick Fitzgerald went to the sideline and kind of emptied himself of some stresses there after scoring the touchdown in the third quarter against Alabama. We had a chance to talk to Nick on Tuesday night, and he said he just was tired and just got excited. He said it's not unusual for him to have those situations. I know fans can think of Wayne Madkin for one. Matt Wyatt talks about how he used to get sick as a quarterback just because the tension. And Dan Mullen made a great point that as much running around as quarterbacks do play to play, the stress sometimes gets to them. But he's fine, he's healthy, and he remembers last year's game where State had a good offensive day for 3 quarters, but 1 quarter, the second, proved fatal in that game when Arkansas took advantage and scored 24 points. This is a game Bulldogs want to come out and not have that kind of lapse. So do you see a more, let's say, organized, disciplined approach by the offense this year, which comes down to just control the clock, make the plays, and kind of put the onus on Arkansas to not be Arkansas?
I think so, David. And to be fair, Arkansas doesn't have the firepower that it did a year ago. You don't have Rollie Williams. You don't have a healthy Austin Allen. You don't have Jared Cornelius. And so they're a different offense. But I really think this game is going to hinge on the defense, David. I mean, it's one of those things, the Bulldog, last year it was an embarrassing performance.
In the second quarter especially, but really for the whole game.
David, they didn't get a stop. You're never going to win a ball game of which the other team never punts. And so talking to some defensive players this week, they are very, shall we say, confident that this Bulldog defense is going to go out and prove that last year's performance was not indicative of their ability or their effort. And I think this year, because of the fact you've got Todd Grantham and this defense has really taken on his persona and kind of following in his lead, I expect them to come out with a chip on their shoulder early in the ball game to kind of show Arkansas, you know what, you got us last year, but that wasn't the real us.
Of course, Mississippi State remained number 16 in the college football rankings, which came out Tuesday after we did our Monday interview. No change. A few people surprised State didn't drop, but when your losses are down to the number 1, number 5, and number 7 teams in the country, that puts you in pretty good strength of schedule situation. However, there's still losses. Mississippi State now 3-3 SEC needs to finish strong and finish not only positive territory for the SEC record, but to position itself for the bowl game. And Steve, you and I have talked a good bit about the bowl picture. Again, Mississippi State has to beat both Arkansas and Ole Miss. But if things play out now, based on the college football playoff rankings we saw the other night, the Citrus Bowl is increasingly possible for this team.
It is, David, and it's one of those things, too, we're almost, and I hate to use the term locked in, but you're almost in a situation now where State is looking and forecasted to be in a bowl they've never been in before, whether it be the Florida Citrus Bowl or the Outback Bowl. So a warm bowl, as Nick Fitzgerald has kind of wished upon earlier this week. But there's business to take care of, David. And the bottom line is that State looks to be in a very advantageous situation, but now it's a matter of going to Fayetteville, taking care of business, and then coming home, protecting the home turf and the annual bragging rights border war with the folks from Lafayette County.
Another thing, too, that fans have expressed concern about, how much letdown would there be after the Alabama game? All the Bulldogs we talked to Monday said the right things, but it comes down to, can they show it there? And I think Fitzgerald summed it up well, and guys we were able to talk to on Tuesday, and staff that we've seen. Of course, Dan Mullen came back yesterday on the teleconference, said the same thing. Don't let one team beat you twice. So that tells me, I guess it tells everyone, that Dan Mullen has talked to his team this week and just hammered home that message. Do you think it will get through, especially when you have a team now with so many juniors, sophomores, and a handful of seniors?
I think so, David. I really think that the Alabama game, rather than being a hangover, could be a springboard with some bigger and better things. I think this is a team that's really kind of finding a sense of itself and finding out how good they can be. They expect to go win this ball game, and I think that's what has to happen this week in order for this team to continue its trajectory, kind of pushing forward into next year when the Bulldog football teams expect to be really good.
And something I thought of related to that, fans hate the 11 o'clock kickoffs, and I know they're really going to hate it in Arkansas. The weather actually should be better at kickoff than it will be as the game goes on. Still an early start, a crowd that's really concerned about what's going on. But the Bulldogs, if they're going to have any hangover, it might be exacerbated if they had to sit around Saturday watching other teams play and thinking about their chance. Instead, they're going to have to get up at 6:30, eat at 7, go into meetings, start getting ready, and get to the stadium. They will have no time to think about it last week's game as they're getting ready for this week's game. Or am I reading too much into it?
Well, maybe so, David, but I think it's one of the situations, too, where the early start helps Mississippi State because of the fact it shortens the week a bit. Not to mention you've got a short week next week, and so you get through this ball game, get on a plane, you come home, you have an opportunity to go ahead and get guys treated and get ready to start getting ready for the Ole Miss Rebels.
So Mississippi State leaves Friday afternoon. Steve and I are leaving sometime in the morning separately. I know you're staying somewhere in the Fayetteville area. I'll be up north somewhere in Springdale, not too far away. And we'll be at the stadium by around 3 o'clock. We will not shoot one of our pregame videos because it being a morning game. And keep in mind, too, that Mississippi State basketball, Ben Howland's team, is playing at 3 o'clock. They moved it from 1 to a 3 o'clock tip-off time so fans can watch the game and still be at Humphrey Coliseum. And you'll get a chance to watch the, we hope, debut of Abdul Adu. Howland said today he should be healthy. He's been practicing, ought to be ready to go. So a chance to get out to the hump, and hopefully while you're there, be celebrating a Bulldog SEC victory at Arkansas, repeating maybe not the same style, but the same result as the Bulldogs had in 2015 in much warmer conditions this time around. So we'll be there. We'll be live on social media giving you updates on injuries, lineups, all sorts of information from the site. We'll be shooting our regular post-game video, hopefully discussing another victory. And then, Steve, getting ready for next week. Oh, by the way, quickly talk to fans watching this where you're going to be for book signings this weekend in the Fayetteville area.
Yeah, thanks for asking, David. I will be at the Stadium Shop on Razorback Drive, just down the road from Razorback Stadium. Come by and say hello. I'll be there from around 8 to 9:30.
All right. So, for Gene Swindoll, for Paul Jones, Mike Nemeth, Robbie Falk, and Steve Robertson here, this is David Murray for Gene's Page 24/7. Mississippi State versus Arkansas, 11 o'clock Saturday.